Hi, everyone. Welcome to Freebird Spirit YouTube channel and the series of Love is the Wisdom Behind Awakening, episode 28.
Is it 28?
28.
Wow. Wow. 2 and 8 is 10. 1.
It is.
Mm.
Back to 1. I just want to thank everyone who has been a part of this conversation from the beginning, and those who popped in even in wherever. Just thank you for being a part of this conversation with us, because literally stepping into these energies and moving them about and understanding them at different at higher and deeper levels, so to speak, that does create change, doesn't it? Just communicating, just talking about it, just moving in the energy is creating that change. And I just know for me, these conversations have just been life altering, and super happy to be here with you, Chris.
Well, it's a joy to be with you too, Debbie. What's been life altering?
Oh, just the whole thing, like being able to dive into these concepts and change narratives and changing things at that level, that spiritual and cellular level. Because if you've been maneuvering, if you've been moving in a narrative, a certain narrative that's what you know, but you're not open to another narrative that possibly could be, more true than the narrative that you're in or whatever. I think it's important to continually check our narratives. We have all come here with this unique ability to have wisdom, to know things, to love things, to be moved by things, all these things. We have these emotions that really help us do all those things. And but one of the challenges can be that you place yourself in boxes in doing so, right? And again, back to the boxes, and people are like, oh no, not again with the boxes. But that's what we're here to break through some boxes, right? And continually to do that, because we tend to grab onto something, it becomes a security of some sort, and then it starts to create that box around us. And anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the narratives that we get. One of the narratives that we may be caught in, and that narrative is in this time of awakening and connecting more into the collective conscious and becoming more and more aware. Are there any narratives that within that are causing challenges for us in fully awakening or stepping into awareness? And one of those things that I was thinking about is when we have an emotion about something. So one of the narratives out there is like, that being angry or don't cry, or don't get angry, or don't have these emotions, because if you do, does that put you in a lower vibration? I believe that it doesn't always have to be. I don't feel that anger or sadness or joy or any of the emotions that you can have, I don't necessarily believe that it has to put you in a lower vibration if you're feeling something. Right. I feel that it can be beneficial and actually rise you up in your vibration. So one of the most difficult ones to see that, because you think, oh, don't be angry, because we just know that everybody's here having the human experience, and we're just to love. Okay. So being angry would put you in that lower vibration. I don't necessarily believe that.
Well, that message is circulating all over the place. So what you just identified was the way in which both the social construction of gender is working, because women aren't supposed to get angry. In the old days, when I was at the university, there when I was a student, there were a group of very powerful Black women who walked through the lobby of one of the big buildings. And word traveled throughout the buildings that they were together and they were marching together. And all they were doing was going to lunch. Right?
Yeah.
But the perception was, if you put women together, or you put Black women together, women of color together, in a setting of something like an official setting, right? They must be out to do something bad. So there's the social construction of women that works to have you be sweet and passive and soft spoken, or better yet, not spoken. I used to struggle all the time when you're in a group of men. It's like you don't even exist. They talk right over your head. It's like, what? But, so you've got a bunch of stuff coming together at once. You've got the social construction of gender, and then you've got the whole notion of vibration, because in our community, in what you call the family, in our community, in the kinds of knowledges that we're both immersed in, phrase that there are certain words that have vibration, and there are certain things that don't. So gratitude and love are at the top, and I'm wearing gratitude and you're wearing love, and we're both pissed off.
I am wearing love. Yeah, you're right. And vote.
Yes. And we're both pissed off, right? So,
right.
But it's like the reading we got months ago, that, the reading of loving presence with righteous indignation. And righteous indignation is a form of anger. But when you're righteous, I don't know. I mean, when you said that about vibration, the first thought I had was, when I'm feeling passionate about social justice and I'm really bothered by what's going on, the vibration of rage and anger, I can feel it in every cell of my being.
Yes.
So that means that I'm vibrating.
Exactly.
Maybe somebody's going to tell me I'm not at a high level of vibration, but
I don't believe that. I believe that when
everything about me is vibrating. The question is what you do with that vibration. I think that's more the issue. We're all going to feel, part of the human condition is to feel. So we're all going to feel things when the stuff happens. But the question is, what are we going to do with those feelings? So if I decide I'm really angry, so I'm going to go shoot you, well, that's like a bottom of the vibration. That's not a good vibration. But if I'm going to try and do something that marries sort of anger with love at the same time, I'm going to be able to try and convert that. And then that goes back to where we were talking about before we came on the air about revolution. Is when you're creating a revolution by taking that anger and shifting it into something really positive.
So so you're talking about responding to the emotion. So it's not suppressing it. Suppressing it causes issues, causes challenges in us, and it tends to make us reactive instead of responding correctly. So, we've been taught to repress our anger feelings, to repress a lot of the emotions that we feel, because it's just not either ladylike or you're not being manly enough. or whatever it is for you. We've been really taught to suppress these things because it's for societal norms of the time. If we were taught how to utilize them, how powerful would we be? If we were taught how to utilize our emotions and respond in a enlightened, loving way, whether it's with anger or with grief or with love or joy, if we're responding with that in line with love, that is, I feel, a high vibration. And and can you imagine how powerful we all would be if we did not suppress our emotions and then react while we're driving, react to, you know what I mean, in anger. It will come out. You can't hold that stuff in. It's either going to come out in illness, or it's going to come out in road rage, or it's going to come out in a verbal conflict with someone that you love the most. It will come out. So and these emotions are important. So if we learn about them, if we open them up and utilize them as tools, it can be a beautiful thing, like revolutionary. And like it can bring things back into balance. You feel injustice in the world. And that brings that that taps into your anger, right? And then you can respond with that anger in a revolutionary way and bring about change and bring things back into balance. If we don't, then that's where we find ourselves reacting. And you have this domestic violence and road rage and shootings and all these things, because we've been taught to suppress. And then someone can't handle what happens to them, and then they go and do something horrible, like shoot people or run people over or do something just out of reaction to the suppressed hurt, anger, and all of that. And again, they're bringing it back to it's taking us back to teaching our kids how to manage their emotions, not managing that you suppress it, but invite it in and take a look at it and go, okay, how where this is coming from this, and how do I respond to this, correctly, or in a way that's not suppressing it and making it into poison. So Coretta King wanted to come in on the conversation today. Coretta Scott King,
who was married to
Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah.
And I feel like teaching the kids I'm stepping into a lot of like my heart space is just exploding here with her. And here you have the responsibility to teach your kids that when they go out, being in black and brown kids going out, and you're teaching them how to respond to hate, and trying to teach them not to respond in kind with hate back. But the lengths of which hate is displayed and given to these kids, the task is tall, she says. Tall task to try to teach your kids how to respond without suppressing what they're feeling, yet being able to respond in a way that they're not repressing and suppressing. Do you have any questions, Chris?
I was thinking about what it was like for her, for Coretta Scott King, to watch this man that she was partnered with be the one, the primary leader of the civil rights movement, to have his life threatened, to see other people's lives threatened, to see her children be threatened, to see the other leaders' children be threatened, other leaders be threatened. I mean, the level of violence was enormous, but she was never the primary speaker. But you know that she knew what was going on, and her feelings were extremely important, and that she was probably managing him to some extent, and voicing her fears at the same time, and knowing full well that this man that she was with was probably not going to survive. So, what kind of messages did she give herself to cope with what she was coping with?
And she said, yes, she said this is part of what she was just talking about in regards to, trying to teach the children. And can you imagine, because of the injustices and the hate that was, spit back at them, basically, in so many different ways. She absolutely had a voice in the home. And specifically, and she says as that she after he passed, you would have seen her more in the public eye, but understanding it was purposed for him to be in the spotlight. They knew that. She's saying, I knew we were a team, and his part of the team was in that position, because of the imbalance of people hearing from a man or hearing from a woman leading this revolution.
Right.
And so that's why we would have seen it play out in the public eye like that. But behind closed doors, she was very much a side by side partner with him, and very much heard. She was gifted at. She had strong abilities in certain areas, and he was strong in certain areas, and they balanced each other out, is what she's saying here. So it was not fully out of you're a woman, don't speak. It was in public, it was more that he was just much more skilled. Mm-hmm. And she was much more skilled at other areas, like helping him write speeches, mm-hmm. or fix them, or like that. So these are just examples. But she says, as a mother, it was very difficult and challenging as a Black mother of Black children,
Yeah.
To try to help them navigate the white society, the white supremacy society, the whiteness, navigate the whiteness. And the unfairness of everything in regards to the whiteness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had students today, 4 Black women, who produced a YouTube video because they had seen you and I talking. And they decided that they were going to talk to each other about issues. I was really struck. And they're they're 20 something. They're young. And they were talking about you, and they kept referring to you as that nice white lady. and and somehow their comments about me as a white person, they sort of danced around that, but of course, I'm teaching them too. So, but what was striking about it with this youth was how everyday matter of fact it was. These white people keep trying to take stuff away from us. These white people don't understand us. And they were talking about intuition, right? They're talking about psychic skills, and they started telling stories of their families. And in the stories of their families, one was Dominican and Puerto Rican, another one was African American, another one was split between Latino and Black. And it was, they were all in agreement. And their comments were, what you whites think is psychic medium stuff is part of our culture. The reason you don't see very many Black people up doing this work on psychic mediums is because we have been taking it seriously forever. And they all started giving examples of seeing someone who just passed sitting at the end of their bed, or being able to tell what something's going to happen. I mean, one after another. After you and I spent time talking with them, they didn't say that. But in this video, they did. But what really stood up, so I'm listening to Coretta Scott King say about teaching the children. These are children in our lives. These are our children.
Yes, yes.
And they're resigned already to whites not understanding them, not being kind to them. If you're nice to them, you're exceptional. And I guess I would love to hear her say, how do you deal with that with people who have come through the system that didn't have the kings as their guides?
Right. And you just teach the yeah, she said she says that's tricky. To bridge that. It even when you teach love and acknowledging whiteness is everywhere. So the challenge being that when you are trying to protect your children from the whiteness and the inequalities and all of that, and the hate and the underlining hate and the underlining separate, all the things that go along with that, which would be that's a whole book. If that's a whole lot there. And she's encouraging everyone to really take inventory of your privilege and your whiteness. And she's offering that because if we understand our privilege and our whiteness better, then the bridge between could be taken down. Because just stepping into that understanding and recognizing this huge gap, you say opportunities. Well, the opportunity that is thrown up in the air, like if you're watching a basketball game and they start the game off by throwing the ball up, well, if you want to see a picture of that, you have the white guy that's standing right there, and then you have the black guy standing way back here, and then they throw the ball up right here. So it's kind of to see a picture of, the opportunity's there, but look who's right underneath the ball. And you have us, you have the black guy placed way back over here. So that's just a metaphor of opportunity. Yeah. You say, well, everybody has the same opportunity. Okay. But the placement, if you can see it in this basketball scenario, the opportunity's there, but where have we been placed historically next to that opportunity that's being given, right? And so, and when I say we, she's saying we. So just become very aware and schooling yourself of these things, and that should bring a more of united. It'll bring more unity. But in talking to you, Chris, in regards to your how do we? Well, just it's not overnight. It's not an overnight thing. She feels it's obviously much better than it was, just because there's many more people, many more folks, she says, in the awareness. They are becoming aware. They're awakening, she says. They're awakening to this, because so many people were in denial of this separation of opportunity. They didn't see the racism. They didn't see the systemic challenges and blocks that were in place from the moment we stepped foot on the Americas. And so many folks are still in the 1880s. If they're not speaking it out loud, it's in their unconscious, and it dictates their behaviors and choices. This needs to be purged as well. Until then, our children need to continue to protect themselves. Our children don't see themselves as less than. They see themselves as kings and queens, like royalty.
Right.
And that is to help them overcome the whiteness, the daily whiteness that envelops every part and infiltrates every part of their world. Whether it's TV, whether it's the store, how the store is set up, how people look at them. Like Chris, she's saying, when you were speaking of those women walking in together for lunch, it's these underlining prejudices that keep them having to be in protection here at some level.
I just, as we talk about this, I'm struck, and of course I listened to what they were talking about this morning, but I just don't understand. I think what's at the core of all this is that we're watching these beautiful young people be harmed,
Yes.
and that they've integrated the harm. They've done nothing wrong. They're full of optimism and idealism and beauty, and want to do good in the world and want to make a difference in the world. And yet the words coming out of their mouth are, oh, well, white people took that away. Well, white people took that away. Well, what did you expect? Debbie, that doesn't even say your name. They said that nice white lady, like it's an exception, right? And so I'm sitting there listening to them, and I'm feeling my heart. I'm feeling the sadness, the deep-seated sadness about what we've done. When we started this conversation, you talked about boxes. What have we done to create a society where we can't see anything but melanin content? They're more than the color of their skin. These are full-fledged, talented, loving, heartfelt, vital people. And yet we're walking around like there's some division. There's no freaking division except the one we're creating.
Exactly.
Can we not share the goods that are on this planet? Can we not share this stuff? Can we not educate our kids in a way where, and of course, our the younger generations are much more diverse and much more inclusive. But what we're dealing with are these older white politicians who are making stuff, and they're bringing it back up to the surface again. They're bringing it back up to the surface in a way where you wish there were a Martin Luther King and a Coretta Scott King out there doing that work. And of course there are, but they're not doing it like they did. I just think it's where we started this conversation was about anger and vibration. And at the moment, the vibration I'm feeling is one of I suppose we go back to the righteous indignation stuff, but I don't get it.
And so recognize that, yeah. But it's not, we're not to suppress it. I think that the message was there, not to suppress it, but kind of redirect it in a direction that will bring change and love. She was saying, Chris, when you were talking in regards to, that this is still so present here, and it's because and we can see this play out. And so when she said it, I'm like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. They're still trying to cover their sins. They're still trying to bury their sins of the past. And you can't erase anybody to cover the sins of the past.
But they're trying really hard, and that's what's at the core of the banned book movement. Right. It's at the core of let's get rid of critical race theory, because we don't want anybody to know what we really.
And it's so in our face and so like kindergartenish that it's so ridiculous. Oh, let's get rid of. It's like they're not even trying to hide anymore what they're doing. It's so evident. And she says that's better than hidden. She just said that's way better than it being hidden. Your enemies. And so before you didn't. So this is again, she says it's progress. You are in the middle of progress. And like you said earlier, Chris, that pushing to the surface and like that's progress. We now can see it. A lot of us are feeling like, oh my gosh, we're going backwards. And she says, no, you're not. it is it is no longer hidden. It is she's showing me, so I'm pausing, like once it was shown on TV, the brutality against the blacks in her time, once it was shown on TV, that's when change started happening, because it was no longer hidden. It was no longer a word of mouth or in a newspaper where you read someone was lynched or this happened there, and you're reading it in words on a piece of paper. You saw it with your eyes on the TV. And that's
what's like George Floyd.
Yeah, exactly. She's exactly.
This matter came out of the George Floyd thing. Yeah.
We can no longer hide, can we?
Yeah.
We can't cover those sins. Our children are important.
Rescue the children.
Rescue the children. Step into revolutionary energy. The rise of the inner fire.
Yeah. One child I remember the most was the one who said to me, if anybody comes at me with violence, I'm going to hit them back. Which I said, and when will it stop? And part of it was because of what I learned from the nonviolence movements, that to react with violence is to keep the violence going. Mm-hmm. To not react with violence, but especially with what they did during that era, was to make it visible how they were being victimized and persecuted, and by not fighting back. I mean, I had an image of, if the news media, for example, could be covering bodies of Black students helping people, right? It would change these images, this perception, this false,
right? Yes, the image
that people of color are out to harm us. I think that's projection. I do. I've always thought that. I've always thought you from the Civil War forward, you've been so afraid that they're going to retaliate against what you've done to them that you're trying to stop them before they get started. And then when you're in that culture, for the most part, that's a culture that just wants peace. They just want to live their lives. Yeah. So if you stop looking for that, living through that fear, you might actually see that there's some really good people out here. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we're preaching to the choir. I do. I feel like the people listening to this isn't news.
It's not news, but it's important to continue to talk about. And it's important too to take that inventory. Where is it that I am blind to my whiteness, my privilege? Please continue to bring that forward so I can make the corrections and to bring that change of collective energy. Because the more I work on myself, the more and I'm connected to the collective and to the collective conscious and the energy, it moves the energy in the right direction. I also, being clear, and this is where Coretta is still here, in regards to being clear about not repressing emotions, because it will it will get into your reactive body and projection. You talked about projection. You'll project it in onto something that is it doesn't belong. And that's where violence comes in. That's where sickness comes in. And so to really, she's encouraging this, really working on embracing our emotions and moving them correctly. She said she worked a lot. She and I don't feel like I should. She's specifically showing me one child that she worked a lot on this with, in regards to embracing the emotions and redirecting them correctly. And it took extra time because everybody has a different personality, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's different. We all come in very different. There's Alice for you. And so so in teaching, again, you have to teach different to each to bring in that deeper understanding. So take your time, figure it out, do what helps you to manage and understand yourself, and then hold that light for others, teach others.
You brought up the word power. I think that the mistake we frequently make is that to express our anger or our indignation is to express our power, right? And yet there's a way to do that where you are you're reclaiming your own power, but without striking out and harming others. You're doing it with dignity and with wholeness.
Exactly. The other piece I feel that's important to come in right now is Alice Childress. Alice Childress, same, a little bit, born a little bit earlier than Coretta Scott King, but basically the same generation. But Alice Childress was an author, correct?
Playwright and an author, yeah.
Playwright and an author. She wants to really highlight this area that everyone is different, and we come in. And there was a quote that you quoted of hers in regards to just we are all so unique from one another, so unique, like a snowflake. And so when you're looking at snowflakes under a microscope, absolutely beautiful in their own rights, but all very different. So but that uniqueness and that amazingness of you coming in there. And when I say you, I mean everyone is unique and beautiful and amazing. And it has nothing to do with melanin.
Nothing.
And so Alice had a beautiful way of bringing in that truth for everyone.
The quote that I said earlier was to interpret the ordinary because they're not ordinary. Each human is uniquely different, like snowflakes. The human pattern is never cast twice.
The human pattern is never cast twice. How incredible.
We are uncommonly and marvelously intricate in thought and action. Our problems are most complex and too often silently born.
too often silently born.
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier about so often what this stuff is people's projecting onto other people what they're suffering with, because their suffering is not stuff they're dealing with.
And exactly, they're like, well, it's not in my, it's not in my realm of, I can't perceive that because I'm not dealing with that. It's ridiculous. So that's where we need to recognize that. Where are we doing that? I also see, and I feel Alice is connecting into the other things that are going on here, and she's highlighting our trans kids, our LGBTQ, our challenges, our societal challenges right now with that spectrum, and gender and the gender spectrum. She's like, again, people, the snowflake.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Yeah. This one of the things that came out this week was that some of these laws are intended to take away from parents their ability to deal with their child's difference, right? So what they're doing is saying, it's going to be illegal for you to take your child to a doctor for a trans issue, what they think is a trans issue. First of all, if you ask the average man what a woman's body's got in it, they
Right.
don't.
They have no. They have
So
no idea.
let's get real here about what we're talking about. And then you showed me a TikTok where the young woman is saying the whole thing about you're so worried about what's in your pants. It was sarcastic and it was funny, but in a way it's true because the only thing they're thinking about is what they know, which
Right.
is what's in their pants.
Right.
But here's the other piece, and I wrote about this a long time ago. It used to be that if you birthed a child and that child was intersexed, let's say it had the reproductive works of both sexes in some form, which is often the case because nature is highly variable.
Correct.
The medical profession would correct them.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring your baby to you and say, here's the issue. Now we need to correct your baby. So we're going to take your baby in and we're going to get rid of the female stuff or we're going to get rid of the male stuff and make them one sex. And then the studies that were done after years of this, that was the norm.
Mm-hmm.
After years of this, studies that were done with many of the kids that they had done this to would say, you made me a man, but I don't feel like I am a man.
Yeah.
I'm a girl. Or you made me a girl and I'm really a man. And we didn't care then.
Right.
We didn't care at all. And then came that whole episode where it was like North Carolina or South Carolina or something where they were all like, we need to get rid of those bathrooms that are gender free. We need to make sure that everybody's safe in the bathroom and that bathrooms are just for. And what if you were born with both things, right? What if you were born both male and female? And that's been the norm forever.
Yeah.
So we're sort of trying to sidestep the real natural world. And now people are debating it. I've had 2 people in my house in the last week who said, I am so upset that the non-binary kids people are trying to affect my kids. They're trying to convince my kids to do what and it's like it's taken its hold in the cultural discourse, and it's not real. It's not real.
Yeah.
The kid claims non-binary. They're really just saying male and female is a myth.
Yes.
We're on a spectrum.
And I'm not playing that game with y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what Alice is saying here is if we continue this work and really take this inventory in regards to your emotions and the things that we've talked about, but also bringing in the understanding that we do not see this color the same. No one sees this the same. I'm looking at it, I see it a certain way. You're going to look at it, you see it a different. Not one person will see this. We have a perceptive, here's some orange color, like a creamy orange color, right? What is creamy orange color? Where did we get that from? How do we know it's orange? You know what I mean? So it's like, acknowledge that we are all uniquely different and divine beings. Okay. Every single one of us. And we will experience and see things different. And that is beautiful and meant to be. So when you look out and there's a snowstorm and all these snowflakes are falling and they land and it's just blanketed and beautiful, right? It's all meant.
When you look at each of those snowflakes, they're each different.
They're each different.
When you stand apart from them, you think they're all the same. When you look at them up close in a microscope, they're all different.
Yes.
So, to me, that's the key to all of this.
But look how beautiful they are when they all are together in unison.
Totally.
But this is just another piece that she wants us to dive in on and really release and understand. You're talking with your partner and you don't understand. Why don't you understand that? Well, understand, again, they come from a completely different space than you. They're not in your, we have these expectations. And so this really helps on so many levels. And I think we have big homework here from these two beautiful beings, Coretta and Ellis. Lots of homework here.
Yeah, and I'm still feeling the effects of what I witnessed on this video this morning with these young women that we don't need guns to harm them. They're harmed by our behaviors.
Oof.
And they're walking around with these internalized wounds that are going to take them a lifetime to deal with by our behaviors.
I'm writing it down. Wow. Yeah. Oof. We don't need guns to harm them. Our behaviors harm them.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need to check our behaviors. And it starts with us.
Well,
it starts with all of us who want to be awakened and step into awareness.
That's why I like that Pink song where she says, the kids are not all right.
The kids are not all right.
Kids are not all right. We have created a lot of damage.
Yeah. When I played that song over, when she came out with that song, I was just like,
yeah,
yes, someone speaking up. So
what can we do right now? What can we do besides sit here and commiserate about?
Yeah. Well, again, it's just being aware. Accept that we are not alike. We don't see things alike. And that's a beautiful thing, first of all. Secondly, recognize our emotions and allow them to be. They're challenging us. They're pushing us. They are allowing us to understand injustice. If you're angry, if you start feeling angry or you're angry about something, it's because there's an injustice. Feel that, understand it, and take that and respond in a proper way. No more suppressing.
I guess I want us to do something.
Oh. Okay.
I want us to
Well,
do
you
something.
tell us, Chris, what do you want us to do?
I don't know. I'm just I'd like to open up the brainstorming,
Like,
like the next time you think about this, like you watch the news or you hear
mhm.
something horrible and you start to feel the feelings about it, you turn around and you say to the person closest to you, what can I do for you? Can I make your day better? It
Oh,
doesn't matter who it is, right?
yep.
How and in conversations over dinner at a party, whatever, how can we make this a better world?
Ooh,
Right?
I
Just
like that. Start.
step up and do something, right?
Yeah,
We can sit here and talk about this stuff forever. And yes, it has some impact, but the other part of this is we have to show up.
I'm writing some of this down, you guys.
What?
I'm telling him I'm writing some of this down.
Write stuff down. It's a good thing. Hmm. It's a good thing. I have a neighbor across the street who probably once or twice a week just shows up. She walks in my house and brings me dinner. She just shows up and brings me dinner. But I'm not the only person she's doing it with. There's a
Wow.
95-year-old man across the street. She shows up and brings him dinner. And then when she saw that he had water in his basement, she called his kids, his grown children, and said, your father's got this situation in the basement. What would you like to do about it? I think you need to be here.
Wow.
She watches out, right? So
Yeah.
today she took off 2 days of work because her dog is fatally ill.
Oh,
She can lay with her dog while her dog's getting ready to pass. So, these are the actions of
actions.
humans who are awake, who are trying to make a better world. They don't carry signs, they don't get on the news, they don't do any of that stuff. They just show up. And that's what I think we need to all do, you know, show up.
Show up. Yeah. Wow. That's beautiful. And I'm loving this. I feel a new t-shirt coming on.
Well,
How can I make the world better today?
yes.
How can I make the world better today?
Yeah. What color will it be?
Mm, purple.
I don't know. You know that painting
Oh,
behind
oh,
you?
oh, the shirt. I thought you meant the
No,
world.
no, no,
Well,
behind you. Your painting that's just behind you,
yeah.
Ireland. Yeah, that painting, if it had a slogan underneath it
Ooh.
on a shirt, right?
Oh, I like it.
Welcome to the portal of goodness. Yeah.
Ooh, welcome to the portal of goodness. See, taking notes, you guys. All right. Well, okay, so I guess, Chris, you're leaving us with how can I make the world a better place today, as an action. And also, I feel like there's other homework that we are already talked about. Looking forward to your comments this week and your stories of awakening. So blessings to you, family. Chris, thank you again. Hugging you.
Back, sweetheart.
For
Yeah.
keeping this conversation going. And until next time, hugs to all of you. All right. See you guys later.